Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
And next up on Classic FM, we have Schubert. No, my name's Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Next up, one of Gershwin's lesser-known pieces. So this is a news and politics podcast.
So lesser known, you don't even know what it's called.
So it's incredibly lesser known. So less known that no one's heard of it.
It's Latin. It's Latin.
Yeah. That's Latin.
Unfinished as well.
During Gershwin's extremely brief Latin phase.
Yeah.
This is
unfinished. These cunts never finish their symphonies. Lazy bastards.
Let me get this out. This is a show about news and politics, and it's a podcast. Here it is. It's a podcast. It's free, so you get what you pay for. This is top story. Donald Trump is on a corruption tour of the Middle East, and very much like his first term in office, Donald Trump decided to tour the Middle East, not visit allies over in Europe, not visit any of the various hotspots. Diplomatically, maybe visit Southeast Asia, the whole pivot to Asia thing, China containment thing that is allegedly so important to the Trump administration. No, what he's done is he's gone and visited Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and is it Oman? Somewhere else as well. Qatar, yes. And the Qataris really rolled out the purple carpet for Donald Trump in that they have purchased him a $400 million sky palace, a little monument to the defeat of the National United Workers Movement. They've donated a $400 million.
They've offered to donate it. It hasn't necessarily
and Trump said that he's going
accepted.
To take it.
Well, he did, but nothing has happened since then.
And Pam Bondi has issued written advice saying that it's legal for him to take it and it's not a crime. So...
Yeah,
this is fine.
As long as they declare it.
Air Force One's really old. Air Force One, it's like 40 years old. They need a replacement, George. What are you going to do? If someone offers you a flying palace, are you going to say no?
Well, that's basically what Trump said. He goes, well, I could be a real idiot and say, no, thank you. Or I could say, thank you very much. And then he went and talked for a minute about golf and when they... Some golfer said when they give you a putt, you take the putt. Basically just saying take the win and don't look a gift horse in the mouth sort of thing. You'll be unsurprised to learn that golfer never said that. He's just fucking making things up. But he basically just said, I'd be an idiot not to take it. And it's a very beautiful gift. It's a very nice gift. And they're gifting me a plane and they're expecting nothing back. And it's since when, Donald, have you ever known Middle Eastern sheiks who are alleged to support Hamas to give $400 million gifts with the expectation of nothing in return? It's just so ridiculous on its face.
Or when has Donald Trump ever given anything without an expectation of something in return?
Right.
Wouldn't he understand that concept better than anyone else?
Deal maker in chief. Yeah. Transactional president.
The least generous man in the universe. Absolutely ridiculous.
Behind all this was allegedly a trade deal that they're working on. So I think they're going to sell them a bunch of US weapons. And he's like, the Qataris are going to buy the most amount of Boeing aircraft that's ever been. It's like several $1 billion aircraft deal or something.
And there was also something about a Trump tower going up in Syria, and so he's released some sort of sanctions against Syria because they said,
Well, he met So this is the hilarious thing with Syria, right? So he met the leader of the new Syrian regime,
who was formerly a member of ISIL or something, wasn't it? He was formerly
no ISIL. So it was the former Al Qaeda member.
Al Qaeda, sorry, yes.
Splintered off. Although the people who was the Al Qaeda branch that he was a part of, then sort of merged into ISIS, eventually. But anyway, it was an older time. Things were simpler back in the day.
It was 2016. We were kids. It's just one of those that you start in a march and then all of a sudden you end up and it's what's this AK-47 in my hand? Well, it turns out I'm part of ISIS. So those things just happen when you're in your 20s. You're on so many substances. You don't know, which holy war you're waging at any given time. These things happen.
Well, not the ISIS holy war. He backed away from that and then obviously fought against ISIS. But Yeah. So anyway, so I can forget the name of the group that he was leading, which was backed by Turkey.
This is the
and
one that
a couple other
overthrew
countries.
Assad. Yeah.
Correct. It's like Hayat something.
Yeah.
Anyway, they are still listed as a terrorist organization by the US State Department.
Yeah.
And Trump is there shaking hands with this bloke, being like, I like you, I like what you're doing. This is all obviously at the behest to some extent of Turkey, right? So Turkey are trying to normalize the Syrian because they're backing. Yeah. And it's also for Trump, it's also a counter against Iran. So they're trying. The US is actually trying to despite the fact they disassembled the nuclear deal in Trump's last term of office, they are now trying to create the same nuclear deal. Deal, trying to reinstate it. So they're trying to put pressure on Iran.
Hearing Ben Rhodes from the Obama, so Ben Rhodes is like a foreign, diplomat who was part of the Obama administration and was instrumental in putting together this Iran nuclear deal. And he's part of the Pod Save America network now. He has a podcast called Pod Save the World, and listening to him losing his fucking mind,
it's insane.
Hearing him talk, listening to him trying to explain the Iran deal and how cooked it is, what they did was by dismantling it, and then they're trying to put together. He's a guy that was going through the 700-page agreement, negotiating, all of this sort of stuff, the detail of this stuff. So he goes, so believe me when I say, when I say they have no fucking idea what they're talking about, I know what I'm talking about when I say that.
Yeah.
He's just losing his fucking mind. Yeah. Quite literally wrote the book on this. And they have no fucking clue what they're dealing with.
So basically Trump's gone around to all rich nations, didn't visit Israel, has also basically
they didn't wheel out a McDonald's for him like Saudi Arabia did, a little demountable fake McDonald's. He's such a moron.
They've said that they're going to stop, shooting at the Houthis. So Israel's, it's kind of despite the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu is meant to be the bestie with Trump, it's kind of almost a little slap in the face that they were ignored. But by the same token, they're also waging a war in Gaza. But I don't know whether Trump really gives a shit about that. I think Trump was just let's go and make deals with all these oil barons.
I want my deals.
So apparently there's a $96 billion deal with Qatar Airways to buy up to 210 Boeing 787s. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff where they're going to buy military stuff from the US as well. And then there were other deals talked about with Saudi Arabia and other things as well.
This is where Trump is at his most comfortable, is dealing with a bunch of, Middle Eastern dictators and sheiks and just making transactional fucking, deals that are just bad for, human rights. It's really, these are the guys who cut up Jamal Khashoggi, right? The journalist, the Saudi Arabian journalist, at the direct order of Mohammed bin Salman, right? The leader of Saudi Arabia. And Trump's in the room going, I like him a little too much. Some people say that I like him a lot. And it's could you imagine if Joe Biden, I know I'm going to spend the next fucking 3.5 years doing this, but could you imagine if Joe Biden got up in front of the world and was like, that guy that murdered that journalist? I like him a little too much. the Fox News.
Is he insinuating that there's
Is he fucking MBS? Is that the?
Yeah.
I really like him. I like him a lot. But it's just ridiculous. The guys that are meant to be the hawks on national security and anti-terrorism. This is the GOP. This is the party that was all gung ho about 9/11. 20 something years ago. And now Trump is not just not only walking the line on US foreign policy, he's giving the guy a big sloppy blowjob in front of the whole, he's just can't even hear him talk with at the level that his mouth is just full of MBS's cock. Jesus
I think
Christ.
saying he's walking the line is generous. I think he left the line a long way back. It is so far back.
Just to see him palling around with all of these dictators. The US has always had strategic relationships with countries in the Middle East for oil reasons or for strategic reasons. And, that's dealing with countries that you don't like. has never been new for the United States. But to give them a big sloppy blowjob on the world in front of the world's press is like, that's new. That is definitely new. Like, Americans did business with these countries, but it was always kind of like ashamed. Like, kind of going, we're going to go over there and we're going to talk to them about human rights. And we go, you should be letting women drive, Saudi Arabia. And they go, oh, bloody US gave us good talking to, didn't they? And now Trump's like, yeah, I don't give a shit about any of that. Where are my jets?
Yeah.
Well, daddy
like,
needs to get his beak wet.
Yeah, you'd be telling them like, oh, you should be letting women drive, and they go, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
but
right.
here's your oil though. Like, thank you very much, but seriously, you let them drive,
Yeah.
we will. See you next week. I mean, there's a quote here mentioning on the $400 million plane palace from Qatar.
What's in the plane? I want to know what's in that
It's
plane.
like 9
it's
bedrooms, there's a bunch of bathrooms, it's all covered in gold.
Yeah,
it's like whatever you're imagining in your brain the plane looks like, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, I'm imagining like the crown jewels, but airborne.
Yeah.
But yeah,
There's a hot tub.
A New York Times reporter is reporting it as likely the most expensive gift from a foreign government in US history.
Likely the biggest bribe ever
Right.
paid to a president. And then
Yeah.
there's this whole thing about how, they're going to donate it and it's going to be donated to the Air Force. And then afterwards it's going to be in the Trump Presidential Library, which, can you imagine? There's a more oxymoronic...
What does that even mean?
A more
the presidential library.
A more oxymoronic thing than a Trump library. This motherfucker who does not read. They're going to have a Trump fucking presidential library.
I would love to see what is in a Trump presidential library. Like, yeah, oh my God, what are they? Because either, like, let's take this to its logical conclusion.
Yeah.
Either if it's a presidential library for Donald Trump, and they say it'll have all the things that Donald Trump wants in a library, it'll have fucking nothing in it. Or it'll have nothing that it barely resembles a book. Yeah. It'll be a casino. You're right. Yeah. It'll be a fucking casino. Or
it'll be the Trump Taj Mahal from Atlantic City resurrected. Yeah.
Or it'll be a presidential library, which means they have to pack it full of books. But like, they don't expect it to be a good library because why would it? So what books are they gonna cram it full of?
My understanding is that these libraries are more kind of like testaments. Yeah, they're more sort of like monuments to the presidents.
Oh, they're monuments to your legacy. You know, there's a whole season arc of Veep about
her presidential library.
Selena Meyer trying to get a presidential library made, and the design that keeps coming back looks like a vag.
Yes, that's right.
And just
Speaking of bribery, I did hear or did read in one of these Middle Eastern countries that he visited, I'm not sure which one, there was a rumored deal that they're setting up where one of these countries is going to buy a heap of crypto owned by one of the Trump family businesses. I'm not sure which one. I think there's multiple ones right now.
The World
like Trump coin, Melania coin. I don't even know.
So Trump Media Group or whatever is what owns all the coins, right? So it doesn't matter which one. It still goes back into his pockets.
Yeah, and there's a rumor floating around that the Trump family itself has earned up to $1 billion in fees from those crypto coins. So every time you buy or sell or move these coins around, there's a little percentage transaction fee cut, which goes back to the owners, which of course is Trump and his family. And they reckon they've cleared easily $1 billion just off the transaction fees of their cryptocurrencies.
Great.
The whole idea of like a librarian who works at the Trump presidential library in the future going, great, just what I always wanted, a plane.
Where do we put that? Do we put that in the East Wing or
just park it behind the golden toilet? Yeah.
The young adult section, is that where it goes? Behind the...
Yeah, no, Trump's actually busy in the young adult section, so walking in on the women taking their clothes off, so I wouldn't bother him.
I love Trump had to describe what a gift is in his Truth Social announcement of this, of being like, you know, quoting like, so the fact that the Defense Department is getting a gift free of charge of a 747 aircraft, like all this sort of stuff. Like, yeah, that's how gifts work, Trump. I know you're not familiar with this idea of like generosity to another person.
Conceptually.
You generally don't pay for gifts.
They're giving me all this quid. They didn't even ask for quo pro quo. It's so dumb. Like, and obviously, like, okay, so when a president travels, like, there's a number of requirements for Air Force One, the plane. So there's a number of planes in production at Boeing for the next generation of Air Force Ones, which are like late and overdue, right? I think this generation of Air Force One is like 30-something years old, right? Those planes do need to be updated. But they've already paid Boeing to deliver these planes, and they're just behind schedule. And Boeing, obviously, understandably, is following their true calling of trying to make the doors not fall off their other planes. So they've been a little bit busy. But like these planes need to be built up to very specific codes and requirements. A president needs to be able to literally fly through a nuclear, like a nuclear bombing event. The Air Force One needs to be able to fly continuously through that. Like when George W. Bush was ferried away from that primary school room after, the 9/11.
Told that a second plane has hit the South Tower.
He was basically in the air in Air Force One the whole time because obviously it makes a much harder target. If the president's in motion all the time in the air, rather than if he's just like hanging out at the Capitol, right, at Washington, D.C. So there's like security protocols. It needs to be able to fly through a nuclear fucking Holocaust. It needs to be able to, have all of these protections. And the thing is, like, to retrofit these planes would cost $1 billion and would take several years, and Trump would not likely be in office even when that work is completed, and it would be completed at a cost to taxpayers, which would be more than the value of the plane.
He's going to change the Constitution and be president forever. But now that you mention that, with that this plane has to survive everything, then maybe the gift from Qatar is perfect. I'm imagining this plane palace is encrusted in diamonds, the hardest substance on the planet. Good luck fucking getting through that to get to the president. You know what? I'm back on board. Diamond plane. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's like that.
Diamonds make good shrapnel, Tom.
Hell yeah.
It's like that magical fridge in the fourth Indiana Jones movie that can survive a nuclear blast.
Hey, there is a shot. No, I will go to bat for that scene. Okay. There is a shot in the movie where when he opens the fridge, it says it's lead line.
Okay,
people did the math. They were like, he'd survived the nuke. He probably would have broken every bone in his body, crashing into the ground.
Inertia
he
is still a thing.
He would have survived the nuke. Yeah. I will defend that film.
Yeah, he opens the door and he just comes out as a pile of meat soup.
He'll be like, please, like every moment I live is agony.
Every moment I live is agony.
And I hate snakes.
So hang on, but also there's a number of security concerns with this, because the whole plane would be one giant bug. Like it would just be made of bugs. Like the idea that a foreign country who is not necessarily like an ally of the United States is going to build a plane and then just give it to you and not sneak in microphones into every nook and cranny of that plane is a fucking absolute fallacy, right? So like when Obama and like various officials go and for like diplomatic talks in foreign, like unfriendly nations like Russia, the amount of security that they need to do, like they don't bring any of their own like normal home devices. They bring in like clean air-gapped devices, knowing that they're probably going to get like some fucking spyware installed on them by customs when they go through or whatever. They have like, I remember, I think it was Ben Rhodes or someone in the Pod Save America team was talking about when they were in Russia, they would set up like little tents inside their hotel rooms in order to facilitate like secure communication, because they assumed that in the hotel rooms they'd all be wired up with bugs and there'd be cameras that could see their screens. So they would set up little tents inside so they could try and securely communicate and type on their computers or whatever without cameras picking it up. So the Russian embassy, when they built the American embassy in Russia, rather, whatever it was last decade, they, for trying to save money, they utilized local contractors, right?
This is ages ago. It was like
20 years ago, 10, 20 years ago, whenever it was.
It wasn't recently. Yeah, it was a while ago.
I remember reading about it, so it couldn't have been that long ago. Basically, what they had to do is they had to rip the whole thing down, because they've put bugs in the steel foundations of the building. Like the security services got into the construction, as it was happening, and like basically infused the whole structure with bugs to the extent to which they just went, we just have to tear it down. There's no way we can actually physically be in this building as our embassy because the whole place will just be bugged. So they ripped it all down, and then they made sure that they had to bring like American materials over and American contractors, and Americans were the ones that actually built it and put it all together because... Yeah, so the idea that this wouldn't just be a giant security flaw shooting through the sky at 3,000 kilometers an hour is just completely fucking ridiculous.
Are you saying the Qataris are untrustworthy, George? Are you saying you wouldn't trust the
anyone
Qataris?
Who just like
the rich oil barons?
And they gave me this fantastic wooden horse, and they told me there's nothing in it. A Trojan horse, they said. Like, it's just the whole thing is just so patently fucking ridiculous. But obviously Trump sees the shine. Like, there's no, like, the emoluments clause is a thing. Like, I hate to be the guy who's like, the emoluments clause of the Constitution. Like, it's obviously not allowed. It's obviously a fucking corrupt bribe. Yeah. Like, I shouldn't have to explain why it's not allowed. But, like, it's obviously not allowed. And yet, I know with every fiber of my being, there is no way that you could put a gold plane in front of Donald Trump and there'd be any universe where he would say, no, thanks, I don't want that. Like, he's obviously going to say yes to it, right?
It is the Trump equivalent of jangling the keys. Yes. Like, he has seen the big shiny thing and he wants it.
This is the laser dot in front of the cat. Like, he's going to go for it, And the Qataris gave him a $400 million jet. And I could just imagine the Emiratis looking at that going, what's left on the registry? All the good stuff's gone. We need to, what does he need? Towels? What does he need? Do you need some fine china set? What do you need, Donald? Fuck, $400 million. They really overspent. I thought we were just going to give them $100.
Yeah, $20 was the limit, you guys.
I thought that's the deal. We all agreed just $100 in the card, and that was it. And it was going to go in the wishing well, and we're all on the same page.
I think the tea infuse is still up for grabs. No one's got that yet.
That's but it's Royal Dalton. The thing's like $400. It's ridiculous.
Diamond encrusted? Is it aerodynamic?
It's extremely aerodynamic. It's a plane. I meant
the tea infuser, but yes.
I see. That makes more sense. Or less sense, depending on how you think about it. So speaking of making no sense whatsoever, Donald Trump is also putting forward Casey Means as his Surgeon General on recommendation from RF Kennedy Jr.
What is a Surgeon General?
Surgeon General is basically like your chief health advice officer person. The person who does the health communicating to the American public.
Yeah.
Right? Don't smoke.
Like how the Attorney General is the legal expert for a country. Yeah, the Surgeon General's the medical expert.
The Surgeon General is as I understand it, it's a bit more like ceremonial. Like the Attorney General actually like administers the law enforcement in the country. Like Pam Bondi has an enormous amount of power for someone who was taking $115,000 a month from the Qatari government as a foreign influence peddler not that long ago. I wonder if that's got anything to do with the $400 million Qatari gift that she wrote and said was okay. Anyway, it's all quid. It's no pro quo, I swear. So, whereas the Surgeon General, as I understand, is more about, a health communicator role. But it's really important that the Surgeon General is someone that, is a doctor. That's kind of the one thing that you need to be a Surgeon General.
Yeah. It's like the Surgeon General. If the Surgeon General says something in a context of health advice, you kind of should be able to trust it, right?
Count on it as
kind of. Casey Means is a doctor, though, right?
Well,
right, guys?
Kind of.
Guys?
She was a doctor. She does not currently have a license.
Yeah, see, that's worse. So... There's one thing, there's you want your Surgeon General to be a doctor? Great. You don't want your Surgeon General to be not a doctor. You certainly don't want your Surgeon General to be someone who was a doctor and now no longer is a doctor. And is no longer a doctor. Because that implies they may be even more dangerous, I'd argue.
So she's sort of dropped her doctoring duties. I think she started her residency, but she didn't finish it. And then she's neglected to renew her license. And in the meantime,
because she became an influencer,
had a flourishing career as a social media influencer in the wellness space, which I think is a job title that needs to be nuked. I think we need to just get rid of the entire
wellness
influencer, social media guru. I think there's a whole corner of the internet where we just need to just shut the doors and just wait till the screaming stops. Like, I think that's definitely one of them. Anyway, so Casey Means is a 37-year-old Los Angeles-based medical entrepreneur. That's an aneurysm of a sentence.
What does that even mean?
Heard one. Who shot to prominence in right-leaning wellness circles by criticizing mainstream medicine and advocating for a healthier food supply. In a social media post, Trump said Means has, quote, impeccable Maha credentials.
Yes. Maha, I hate. Oh my God. Like,
make America hazy again.
Make America hepatitis again. Healthy is allegedly what it stands for. So, it's kind of the whole Maha movement is a weird kind of loosely defined wellness movement that's been embraced by the far right. It's got some things to do with like food skepticism and anti-GMO stuff, and it's kind of mixed in with anti-vaccine stuff and kind of Reiki and energy healing and all this kind of like, kind of health nut kind of woo-woo bullshit is all kind of conglomerated under this Maha movement in recent years. So, and obviously it's flourishing under Bobby's leadership. So you'd be unsurprised to know. Now, one person who has a really big problem with Trump's pick of Casey Means is loony Laura Loomer, who some of us might be familiar. Have I told you about Laura Loomer?
The name rings a vague bell.
So this is a woman who like chained herself up in front of like Twitter's headquarters back in the day because they were like shadow banning right-wing voices.
Okay.
Yeah, real wackadoodle. And I hate it when even
Twitter certainly isn't doing that now.
Yeah. No, definitely not. So Laura Loomer, she's been like quite close to the president. There was a story a couple of weeks ago about how, she basically trotted into the Oval Office and told him who in the national security establishment was like not a true Trumper and who to fire. And he did that, just like fired several very extremely senior legacy lifetime military personnel on the recommendation of some woman who is completely unqualified to make those determinations. Now, I hate it when someone crazy who I dislike says something I agree with because it really makes me question my priors. But she's tweeted, new, and this is all in all caps with alarm emojis. I want to yell it because it's in all caps. President Trump's pick for U.S. Surgeon General Casey Means said she prays to inanimate objects, communicates with spirit mediums, uses shrooms as, quote, plant medicine, unquote, and talks to trees. She also doesn't even have an active medical license. The inmates are running the asylum. This is literally from one of Casey Means MD's newsletters. I have the entire page archived and took screenshots. She was just chosen by President Trump to serve as the next U.S. Surgeon General, and she's tagged him. Take a look at this section on her newsletter. Blah, 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 blah. Another failure by the geniuses who work for President Trump on this non-existent vetting team. I guess there isn't a single conservative doctor in America who doesn't have a history being a Marxist tree hugger. We're so doomed, aren't we? And I hate it when I am forced to agree with Laura Loomer. I don't like, it's not a nice feeling when that happens to me.
The Venn diagram in this new reality that we live in of like the crazy, like so sometimes you can go so far to one side, you actually go around the world and you end up back on the other side of the circle.
It's literally called horseshoe theory, when the two sides of extreme ends of politics end up kind of awkwardly bending and wrapping around like a horseshoe and kind of touching each other. That's where we are with Laura Loomer. Is she's just gone full horseshoe. She's so MAGA, she's actually come around to like a sensible leftist perspective on this, which is like, hey, maybe we shouldn't put a person who's not actively a doctor in charge of the doctor stuff.
What I find hilarious, though, about this whole situation is that Means is the second choice because the first choice also got yeeted for not having appropriate medical qualifications. And I've lost the name because I haven't got it in front of me.
And Trump said, I don't know. Yeah. I listened to the recommendation of Bobby. I don't know her. I don't know anything. I just listened to Bobby. Bobby said she was great. And so I appointed her. I was like, well, that's a hell of a way to run a government, buddy.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
you know she doesn't criticize Trump.
I didn't do any research.
She doesn't criticize Trump. She said, "Oh, it's the geniuses around Trump, these idiots around Trump that are." She never criticizes Trump. We all need to all hail. Yeah, we all need to hail the glorious leader. It's the people around
Steve Bannon,
him.
calm down.
It's the people around him that are corrupt and terrible. You know, if the Fuhrer only knew what these dodgy generals around him were doing, you know, he'd be so upset. But you know, like it's just because he doesn't know. It's only if Stalin only
Trump
knew.
does know what they're
Stalin
doing.
only knew what these terrible people around him were doing. Yeah, of course. Yeah, he's directing it all. Like,
I just can't believe
that was
a
common refrain in Germany during the Nazi uprising was that if Hitler only knew,
he can't possibly know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise he wouldn't be letting it happen. We agree he's perfect. It must be the corrupt, sort of artifice around him.
The elites.
The elites around him that are, trying to...
Oh, the other guys, not us. Wait, we haven't got any elites. There's no elites in the India's Republic and stuff.
Here. No, didn't he go to Yale? Don't worry about it. It's fine. No elites here.
That's the thing that gets me is that like they got rid of the first nominee, didn't even get to a Senate confirmation hearing because they were like, oh, she hasn't got enough medical credentials, and they put someone up without any medical credentials again.
Well, she did train to be a doctor, but yes, she does not have an active medical license because it kind of seems like she's making more in her right-wing medical grift than she ever would as a doctor, and that seems to be the aim. So.
Robert Kennedy's the worst.
Yeah. Well, also, they mentioned Casey Means, her brother also works for Robert F. Kennedy's health department now. I believe self-described former food lobbyist is how this article describes Callie Means, Casey Means' brother.
Casey and Callie. Yeah, those parents definitely had no screws loose. Yeah, I just... and they've done a lot of the health technology and wellness devices and glucose monitors and all these kind of this whole right wing health grift ecosystem that both of them are a part of. It's just like you could not find people that are more ill suited to the roles in the administration to which they are being appointed.
And it kind of annoys me a little bit because it conflates, as you said, all these things have been sort of rolled into one. And there are legitimate concerns around American food supply and diet generally in America.
Yeah, and there's this whole thing about food coloring and food dyes, how, one of the things Bobby Kennedy likes to trot out is that, that there's the food coloring in like Fruit Loops. You look at the American Fruit Loops versus European Fruit Loops, and Europeans just don't allow all these different kind of dyes and things. So the colors are different. The European one looks kind of pastel-y and kind of less unnatural, and the American bowl of Fruit Loops looks like a fucking rainbow jizz fest. So,
see the rainbow, taste the rainbow.
Yeah, taste the rainbow all over your face. But so there are some like legitimate criticisms that one might have about the American food supply. Certainly, the whole notion of like pink slime and like food additives and like all of these gross things that go into American food. I was in America for several months. I ate their food. A lot of their produce is dog shit, and I was going to like fancy Whole Foods, supermarkets, expensive places. I refused to eat American meat because it was just trash. It was shit. I would go and get Australian Angus beef that was imported over to the United States if I wanted to eat a steak, or I would get Irish cheese or whatever, because the meat and the dairy that they had over there was fucking horrendous. It was inedible as far as I could tell. There is a lot of problems with the American food supply system. However, there's a big, big difference between we should get some additives and, whatever, all this kind of like extra shit that's in our food, meat being treated preemptively with antibiotics rather than kept in humane conditions, that sort of stuff. Mass factory farming, bad. Let's get that out. Big difference between that and 5G gives you brain cancer. There's not quite the same.
But this is my point, though, is that it annoys me because
it all gets lumped together.
And we go, oh, these guys are crazy. When it's like, well, like parts where they're drawing the dots is the direction that's going is crazy. But like some of the dots are fair enough. But this is why you get Luna.
Sick shit. There's plenty of sick shit that's real. Like, you don't have to make stuff up about how fucked the American food system is, how fucked the American healthcare system is as a result. Like, you can just look at mass factory farming. You can look at food additives that have been added for, preservatives to increase shelf life. You can look at, like I think I mentioned on the show recently, Salt, Sugar, Fat, which is a book I read a number of years ago, which goes into the ways that these large food companies add the perfect combinations of salt, sugar, and fat to their products in order to make them maximally addictive. They find the ideal pressure, pounds per square inch, for the crunch of a chip. There's scientists at Frito-Lay that built a specialty, I think it was like a $40,000 machine, to test the optimal crunch factor for a chip. And it's 4 pounds per square inch, by the way. So that's all real. You can just look at those things and go, there's a multi-billion-dollar conspiracy from multinational food companies to make us addicted to food that is bad for us. That is all real. You don't need to then go into and also the 5G gives you brain cancer. You don't need to. You don't have to. There's a bunch of real shit you can be upset about.
But this is the thing, is that, but this is why it's dangerous, is because the narrative and the way this element of the MAGA, the sort of what is effectively a right-wing sort of ecosphere, which originally was sort of left, and now that
health crunchy granola thing was very left-coded initially. And I don't know if it's that the movement has kind of moved away from those people, or those people have just moved into the right wing. But it's definitely right-wing coded now for sure.
Yeah. It's dangerous because people are joining the dots in such a way, telling a story which sounds legit because it has real concerns. It has, we hear about all these things that George just described, and we've heard about them for the last 20 years. And so, we lean towards it because people, and this is how people get indoctrinated into cults, right? Like it's this sort of, we lean into it because we gravitate towards something, and all of a sudden they're telling us not to take vaccines or whatever it may be. So, Maha, it sounds good if you're if you don't know any better. Like, it sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, if you're a moron, it sounds great. I really think a lot of it is intellectual laziness, is that people are just unwilling to sit down and fucking read a book about these issues. Like, if you feel and think so deeply that you care so deeply about these things, that you're going to make it your whole identity, don't watch a bunch of fucking YouTube videos. Don't, you know what I mean? They're just unwilling to sit down and actually pay attention and read quality information about the thing that they that they purport to be concerned about. If you're actually concerned about this stuff, you would do the work and view quality sources and get real information about what's going on in order to push back against it. It's like all these people that are like, oh, you got to watch out for the door handle. All these mums on social media going, oh, someone left a little thing on my door handle in the car park, and that's because they want to traffic me. So they're trying to traffic me and my kids. And it's like, well, human trafficking is a real thing. There are organizations that fight it. There are books out there by credible people about these subjects. Rather than watching 10 hours of YouTube from some fucking cunt on the internet who just has an opinion on human trafficking and G'ing each other up on social media, if you actually care about this stuff, go read a fucking book about it and support a charity that actually does something about this, rather than just Jim Caviezel your way into fucking, pretend, you know what I mean? It's all these fake people that care about all this shit, that they don't actually know anything about.
Sounds more like the people who write the books need to make some compelling 10-hour-long YouTube videos.
Or just turn the whole
giving
thing into
out the correct information. Yeah.
But it's the truth is not sexy and entertaining. But you get these magnetic personalities on YouTube and on, dare I say it, podcasts that are very exciting and talk to people, and they have these parasocial relationships with them, and they're in their ears 100 hours a week, and they're just churning out content. And people believe the things that they say. And I agree with you, Adam, to a certain extent. It's like a cult. If you were all living in a certain, in a single place and believed all this shit together and lived in a commune, we'd be like, that's a cult, right?
What was the Australian health influencer that said she cured cancer with
Belle Gibson.
quinoa and shit? Belle Gibson. There was that TV show, obviously, that just came out.
I didn't see it. Apple cider vinegar. I heard it was all right.
Yeah. Obviously, the original real life stuff, as well as the TV show, a very interesting reference point for all of this conversation. I do want to move on to the US government doing human trafficking, though, or attempting to, by potentially suspending habeas corpus for fun.
Oh yeah. So
why would you want to get rid of habeas corpus? It's so much fun. It's so fun to say.
Habeas corpus.
Habeas corpus.
It's
Habeas corpus. Let's get some habeas corpus up in this bitch.
It's also the only Latin I speak. So, yeah, it's so funny that like
all my Latin went out the window. I was like, I can think of a Latin phrase.
Pro, isn't that?
Vendi
Vici. Saying it all episode. I almost just said like 9. No, wait, it's German. I don't know. 9 was just the first word that popped into my head, and it's not Latin.
It's so
Think
funny.
of Gladiator, Strength and Honor, or something. I don't know.
My name's Maximus Decimus Meridius. I can speak Latin.
Yeah, the name is not. That doesn't count. So it's such a testament to how fucking cooked the world is that the American Trump administration just kind of like casually mentioning that they're talking about suspending habeas corpus is like third on the rundown. It's not number one, 5-alarm fire news alert on all countries getting pushed by the BBC notifications on your phone. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, and Trump. So anyway, so for those who don't know, habeas corpus is Latin for, I think it means that you have the body. And it's basically a legal principle that says if you're going to hold someone having their body, right, you need to have a legal justification for doing so. You can't just hold people in infinite detention without there being some sort of justification, some sort of due process. You
can't just hang on to them while you figure it out.
Yes, or in the case of, I think it, so Parliament, so this is based on English common law, Parliament enacted the Habeas Corpus Act of 1679, which is meant to ensure that the king released prisoners when the law did not justify confining them. So presumably the king was just going, okay, well, we can't pin a crime on this guy, but I fucking hate him, so he's going to rot in the Tower of London forever.
Yeah. I'm the king. Chuck him in the dungeon.
Yes.
They were still, that was like, was that English Civil War period? Or just, it was like, probably like 50 years after Henry VIII or something. So like,
maybe something like that. But a good 100 years before like the War of Independence in the US. So like a pretty established precedent.
Yeah, the 1850s or 1860s that was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
the idea is that was 1777.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant the Civil War. Yeah, the War of Independence.
No, sorry, I meant the War of Independence. Like, so it's like 100 years before America even formed. Like, that's how old this concept sort of is.
Yeah, it's like Middle Ages
legality.
Common law is that, if you hold people in detention, you have a reason for doing so. And the American administration have just been floating the concept that, maybe that thing that's central to the Constitution is maybe not something we need to do. So, quote, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. Stephen Miller told reporters outside the White House on Friday. So, quote, I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Unquote, Miller said.
Yeah.
Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts... No, let me get this out because this is super important. Quote, look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not, unquote. Which is the most chilling thing I ever heard of that fucking Smurf's mouth. Like that is...
Yes, that's what I was going to say. This is a quote from White Horse Deputy Chief of Staff and on retainer supervillain Stephen Miller.
Yeah, Santa Monica fascist Stephen Miller.
Yeah.
So basically saying to the Supreme Court, hey, it's a nice fucking constitution you got there. Be ashamed if something happened to it. Hey, fucker, you better behave yourself.
Look, Supreme Court, there's no right or wrong answers here, but there's a right answer, if you know what I'm saying.
This is how dictators clamp onto power, right? Is they use, it's an emergency. We have to suspend all our norms.
It's literally a step of the playbook. Yeah. So if
the dictator playbook is we are being invaded by brown, whatever, like, pick your
minority, pick your other
minority.
It was the Jews, it was the Irish, it was the foreigners, it was the Africans,
communists.
It was the communists, it was the...
And the wording of invasion is very telling. It's very specific. Like it's not just that there's an issue. It's like we are, like, you're trying to drum up that you are being invaded by an enemy. Like, invasion just leads to enemy kind of in the logical
Us and
step.
them. Yeah.
Your thoughts? Yeah,
it's literally a step in Timothy Snyder's On Tyranny, which is great. It's like a 2-hour read. I recommend everyone pick it up. But it's literally a step where he says, you know, you break the information space, you characterize us and them, and then you say there's some sort of invasion happening. It's a step in the process, right? So the idea that, you know, White House aides are just casually going out onto the White House front lawn and just musing as to whether they're going to break democracy is just, you know, I was thinking about it. Maybe we should get rid of this habeas. So habeas corpus has been suspended, like four times.
Has been suspended before
through America's history. Once was like the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and they said, hey, all these and it's like one of the worst like stains in American history.
Yeah, it's like a terrible example if you want to say, hey, we've done this before. Like, yeah, this isn't weird. It's a positive situation. We did that before. Well, remember when we rounded up all Japanese people into internment camps?
Yeah, and it was a human rights violation, and we just rounded up all of the Japanese people that exist, and it's a stain on our national character. Yeah, so it was like that.
See, this is a good thing. We want to do that again.
Yeah, it was suspended during, you know, the Civil War. It was suspended, you know, there was like a couple of other times where there was like a Ku Klux Klan, you know, mass violence response to the Civil Rights Act of 1871.
They won't mention that one. They won't mention that example.
Yeah, white people just getting scooped off the streets. Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It was meant to counter violence and intimidation of groups opposing Reconstruction in the South. Yeah, it was an anti-Ku Klux, basically, so they could say, hey, if you're a Klanman rolling around, you know, threatening to kill people, we can just scoop you up without having to arrest you for something. But which is like, yeah, okay, well, in that instance, maybe it's fine. But in all of these instances, this has been something that's been done by Congress. And nowhere does it say in the Constitution that the president can unilaterally suspend habeas corpus based on his idea that we're under invasion. And under invasion from who? They're trying to say like, oh, they're under invasion from, you know, from Mexico, from South, you know, Venezuela. They're sending gangs, but it's like, but they're also saying, in one breath, they're saying we're under invasion, so we need to undertake these extraordinary legal measures to prevent it. But in the next breath, they're also saying, and also border crossings are at a history-breaking, like all-time low because of the action of the Trump administration. So it's like, well, which is it then? You can't. Both of those things can't be true at the same time. You can't be like, it's an invasion. There's hordes of them. They're swarming over the world's walls like World War Z. And also, there's no immigrants coming. We're doing great.
It's interesting because I wonder how much of this is a thought bubble from Stephen. But I also wonder, because he's the deputy chief of staff, like obviously he's got, or at least he would be very close to the ear of the president, being the deputy chief of staff.
And all of the batshit, like nationalist, you know, like all the stuff to do with Tren de Aragua and you know, deporting people to the mega prisons in El Salvador. I have no doubt whatsoever that that's directly out of Steve Miller's fucking Lex Luthor head, right? Like,
but yeah, I guess it's one of these things where, and it's the same thing for the Maha stuff right before, there are lots of players trying to get, and the same thing as Trump's first term, right? Lots of players within the conservative ecosphere trying to get the ear and get close to the president to influence policy to whatever outcome they envisage. So whether that be make America healthy again through whatever prism that they're looking at that through, whether that be through let's create a fucking dictatorship slash, you know, fucking fascist police state with Stephen Miller, or whether that be, you know, if you're
Trump is talking about the Alien Enemies Act of like 17 something, and it's like, you really think Trump's flipping through fucking constitutional law going, tell me about this Alien Enemies Act. It's like, no, obviously Stephen Miller or one of his other fucking goons in the background has been, you know, like thoroughly researching all of this and trying to find out with some bullshit dogshit justification as to why they can initiate a fascist takeover of the government. And if you're the last person in the room to speak to Donald Trump, as you were saying, Adam, if you're just the last person to talk to him before he goes out in front of the press,
he'll just repeat it.
He'll just repeat it. You might get whatever policy, you might get the Stephen Miller Appreciation Act if you just happen to be the last person to talk to him before he goes out in front of the cameras. The man's like a goldfish. Like, it's just incredible.
I did mention Henry VIII before, but it's 100 years like after that. So we're talking 1679. So it is actually about, like 20 years or so after the English Civil War. So it was a confrontation between Parliament and King Charles II, where they were obviously trying to argue around sort of, various policies and who can have what power, because King Charles II, for reference, was the son of King Charles I, who was murdered by when England, for a very brief period of time, got rid of their monarchy. But anyway, I'm just going a side tangent. I just want to make sure I got those facts right.
Well, but it's interesting that you bring that up, because this whole branch of English common law. So there's a book that I'm reading at the moment called Why Nations Fail, which talks about the strength of...
Some light reading.
Shut up, Tom. Read a book, you idiot.
Books aren't always that good, George. Books can be written by crazy people as well.
Sure.
I love to read. I just don't unwind reading about how the whole world collapsed.
It helps
Not
me.
every book. Not every book is created equal.
No, that's true. But it does help me get to sleep. No, but it essentially talks about how these are Nobel Prize winning authors, and the whole, they've written a series of books along a similar sort of subject matters. But Why Nations Fail is specifically about institutions and how institutions build up over time, and how the politics of a particular nation and the character of a particular nation and the way it positions itself, the way those institutions develop over time, can have really serious consequences for the prosperity of nations, and why some nations are rich and some nations are poor. And they talk a lot about extractive political institutions or inclusive political institutions versus extractive economic institutions and inclusive economic institutions. And the idea is, if you have an inclusive political institution, it's going to lead to inclusive economic institutions. Everyone gets richer, property rights are secure, and that explains the difference in why I think it's Sonora, which is a town right on the border of the United States, is so much more, rich and successful than Sonora on the Mexican side of the border, because they each have their country's set of institutions and protections over property rights and all this sort of stuff, right? All of this traces back to the Black Death. And the Black Death happened in the 1300s. A bunch of workers died. Then they could turn around to their landlords, to the nobility class, and say, hey, you can't treat me like a slave anymore. I'm not a serf. I deserve to be paid, because if I don't do it, everyone else is dead. So you got to pay me properly. Otherwise, I'm not going to do the work. And this led to a shake-up in English common law, and the way that the institutions were positioned meant that the British monarchy over time became much less powerful and had to negotiate with Congress in order to actually get things through.
Parliament.
Through their parliament, not through Congress. Whereas in other nations, the monarchy had a much tighter control, and therefore, was able to retain control more. And like in Russia in the 1800s, they were experiencing a second serfdom, right? Because their institutions were much more in favor of the aristocracy and the monarchy, and they could do whatever they like with complete unchecked power. So over hundreds of years, you see how the way these institutions are and develop affects outcomes of history. But like the whole reason America is so successful and so powerful is because it is presumably based on these English law, common law traditions of, treating other people with respect, habeas corpus, all of these things. Like the reason your country is the locus of the Western world, is the richest, most powerful nation on earth, is because of all of these institutions and principles. And Stephen Miller's like, but what if we don't? What if we just didn't have any of that? And it's like, but that's why you're so powerful. Yeah. Why are you doing this to yourself?
Yeah, I don't think you can get more the right of like the right to be free, to live free and die hard than habeas corpus.
Yes. It is quite literally the definition of freedom.
Yeah. My freedom law in habeas corpus.
Yeah. Tom, what do the numbers mean?
What do the numbers mean, Mason?
The numbers, Mason. What do they mean?
This just came across my feed the other day, and I was a bit like, are we fucking serious? Has a fucking national meltdown occurred over a former FBI director's Instagram post of his morning walk? And oh yes, it has. So we may remember the FBI/BFG James Comey and former director of the FBI. I'm glad you appreciate it. That he's a very tall man. He Yeah, he posted a photo to Instagram the other day, just from his morning walk along the beach. He just came across, according to him, just on the sand a bunch of like seashells and pebbles and all that sort of stuff, just forming the numbers 8, 6, 4, and 7. Took the photo, was like, huh, that's interesting. Posted it. And right-wing circles promptly imploded because they argue that this was a secret trigger phrase to call to assassinate Donald Trump.
It's some sort of Manchurian candidate fucking activation code.
They are arguing that this is a former FBI director calling for the assassination of the sitting president.
Break it down, Tom.
Yeah, the logic they're using there is apparent. I've heard this expression occasionally, but the expression to 86 something, meaning that it's gone, it's no more. Like it was 86. You got rid of it.
I remember when I worked in a restaurant, it would say, that menu item is 86. We're getting rid of that. We're not having that on the menu today. Sort of thing.
Yeah. So I don't know why. Like, I don't know why 86 is the slang. Like, I don't know the etymology of the expression, but yeah, apparently in American slang, to 86 something is to get rid of it. And Donald Trump is the 47th president. That's as deep as it gets. Yeah. They are saying to put 86 and 47 next to each other is to get rid of.
Wasn't there something to do with the commentary that he put along it? Like, what was his comment on the photo as well?
I believe. Let me just load it up. This screenshot.
Comey captioned the post. Cool shell formation on my beach walk.
Yeah, that's it.
Is it sarcasm or is it?
Well, according to James Comey, because he's since deleted the post and I think put out the standard solemn JPEG or whatever of saying like here we go. He said, I posted earlier a picture of some shells I saw today on a beach walk, which I assumed were a political message. I didn't realize some folds associate those numbers with violence. It never occurred to me, but I oppose violence of any kind, so I took it down. That's his official response to it. So I think he did seem to think
it was about Trump.
That this was about something. Yeah. He was just like this. Someone's like. I mean, I get that in the sense of someone's clearly arranged these shells and stones to make out
as
these 4 numbers. Yeah. So unless someone's writing down their own PIN for their bank card or something, this means something. But interesting photo. I don't know.
It's actually a Russian dead drop.
Maybe
a fucking psyop.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it has like Manchurian candidate, somebody. But yeah, there was references in the ABC also cited that apparently there is like some basis for people to be up in arms about these 4 numbers being put together because apparently there were like T-shirts seen throughout the election of having 8647 or 8646
talking about Biden.
Yeah, so Biden being the 46th US president. So yeah, there's apparently some precedent, some examples of these 4 numbers being put together, being used to call for getting rid of a president. But I don't know. It was just kind of, I saw this being like, wait, are we fucking, with everything going on, with fucking the internment camps going on in El Salvador, with the Qatar airplane, all this sort of stuff. Some guy who's not even the director of the FBI anymore posts a photo from the beach and everyone loses their fucking mind.
Comey's beach pics are now the #1 story in American media. It's honestly just insane.
I mean, there's other ways to look at it, like, because there's 4 numbers, and one of them's made of yellow shells and the other ones are grey shells. So, like, what does that mean?
What do the colors mean?
And like, is the 8 more important somehow? Like, what's the numerology of this? You know what I mean? Like, how often do these numbers appear together?
Yeah, that's true. It does seem like we've got a whole bunch of black stones, and maybe they ran out and found a whole bunch of. They look like pippies. Like,
we should
crustacean.
We should ask Sussan Ley what the numerology of the numbers means.
Oh yes, good point. Good point.
We've got Donald Trump talking about the James Comey post on Fox News,
and he knew exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. Now, he wasn't very competent. but he was competent enough to know what that meant. And he did it for a reason, and he was hit so hard. Because people like me, and they like what's happening with our country. Our country's become respected again, and all this. And he's calling for the assassination of the president.
Obviously, he apologized and said he wasn't calling for violence. But
look, he's a very bad.
What do you want to see happen? What do you want to see happen?
I don't want to take a position on it because that's going to be up to Pam and all of the great people. I have Cash, I have Pam, I have great people. And I'm going to let them, because if I tell you something, they'll say, oh, I'm not going to get involved. But I will say this, I think it's a terrible thing. And when you add his history to that, if he had a clean history, he doesn't. He's a dirty cop. He's a dirty cop. And if he had a clean history, I could understand if there was a leniency. But I'm going to let them make that decision. But he knew exactly what it said.
I'm going to let them make that decision, talking about Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, the Attorney General and FBI head, respectively, basically more or less saying, can you guys investigate this guy? Or like he's saying, I'm not going to tell him what to do, but all I'm saying is my law enforcement people will make their own decision about what to do with this guy who I think is a criminal. Make up your own mind as to what to do with that.
Yeah.
And which is hilarious because it's the guy that was like, incited a coup that was calling for the, JD Vance to get, not JD Vance, what's his name? Mike Pence to get strung up. But anyway.
Yeah. It's literally like there are all these examples, even within, this article where they're talking about here are times that Donald Trump advocated violence in, his public posts. And there's Donald Trump, real Donald Trump, has reposted a picture of a guy who's driving in his truck, and he's got a decal on the back which has got Joe Biden hog-tied, as though he's
hog-tied in the trunk. Yeah,
it looks like he's it's sort of superimposed on the tray of a truck to make it look like he's got Joe Biden hog-tied up in the back. Yeah, and Donald Trump is posting this. He's advocated violence in his rallies, and just for them to get so they call the left snowflakes, and then James Comey posts some seashells and they're like, fucking il voglio vendetta.
It's just crazy. I don't know. I didn't think we'd hear from James Comey again, but then
no.
Bro went for a morning walk and really rattled the
internet.
Cage.
Why, bro, James, why are you posting on social media? Just fuck off into the good night.
Yeah,
James.
Everyone needs
you're the reason
a little bit of attention, George.
You're the reason we have Trump in the first place. If you just shut up about Hillary's fucking emails 8 days before the election, we wouldn't be in this mess. And now he's like, you know what else? Everyone needs to see these fucking seashells. Pow! James Comey is going to be a social media influencer.
I think also just from the point of, dude, you don't have to be on social media anymore.
You're a millionaire. Just go away. Enjoy your retirement, you old fucking giant asshole.
Yeah, I assume he's got a good pension or whatever, and he doesn't have to have a public career anymore.
No.
Dude, you don't have to do any of this
don't
shit
tweet
anymore.
ever again. What are you doing, Comey? You psycho.
The likes, the dopamine hit from the likes, George.
Oh my God.
So anyway, we're going to do Australia in the next 10 minutes, or else I'm going to bed. So a lot of leadership changes in Australian politics over the last week. Starting off with the Nationals, Matt Canavan was not successful in his tilt for the Nationals leadership. David Littleproud retained the current stewardship of the party. They are, I think, pretty much looking like they're going to be they are now. I think it's counting finish now, technically speaking. I think
it's getting pretty close. I mean,
there's a couple of seats maybe still.
I think
I'm
it's
still waiting to see
more or less finished.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to see if Tim Wilson's going to eat shit and maybe lose after the concession.
After conceding, but not then declaring he won. And then
unconceding.
After everyone saying he won in the media, and then the counting's still going, and that gap, his lead is shrinking.
I think he's ahead by 200 votes last I saw this afternoon.
It's really close.
Yeah. So he might pull it off, but it's pretty close. I saw Monique Ryan retained her seat. There was some disagreement as to whether that was going to happen or not. Again, pretty close, within a few thousand votes. Yeah. So it was 50.2% versus 49.8 or whatever. Super close.
It's something crazy.
206, according to
206. Yeah, I checked it this afternoon.
Oh, wow. So it's dropped by 50 since I last checked.
Yeah.
So Zoe's gaining more.
Yeah.
I would love it if Zoe Daniel retained her seat.
One vote or something crazy.
Yeah, so good.
Anyway, so
Anyway.
The Nationals have ended up with pretty much the same sort of position that they had.
I think they lost like 2
sort of
seats
prior.
or something. They didn't really lose a lot compared to the coalition, who just like lost a limb in the last election. The Nationals kind of like, because they've got their dyed-in-the-wool voters. They're pretty conservative. You know, they're not like One Nation conservatives, but they're like pretty batshit conservative.
Yeah.
And so the people that are there are happy where they are. And so you didn't see a mass defection to the Labor Party like you did with the Liberals, right?
And they commonly, you know, they're representing sort of regional areas. That's kind of their
a
shtick,
lot of those
right?
areas are uncontested by, you know, Labor and those kinds of more leftist-leaning parties altogether. So
anyway, so that happened with the Nationals. The Greens elected I've already forgotten it. Larissa Waters
as their new leader after
as
Adam
a new leader.
Yeah.
Was out. Yep.
And the Liberals, after much chagrin, elected Sussan Ley as their leader, as the new leader of the opposition is Sussan Ley.
Yes, the moderate Sussan Ley.
Moderate Sussan Ley. At least that's how she's positioning herself. She was asked point blank. They were like, "Are you going to be more moderate?" And she's like, "I don't like to pick where I am on the scale, but if I had to, I'd say I'm more center." And I was like, "Oh, okay.
More center than what?" Yeah, we've got a piece coming up where we'll talk about what a load of fucking horseshit that is.
Let's not read through the whole piece, but like,
no, I was going to read it word for word. Yeah, I was just going to read out my whole Substack post word for word and just have you guys wait and watch. But the other thing I wanted to mention, before we move off this, so yeah, Matt Canavan, the Nationals have a thing where after every election they have a spill for their leadership, and you know Canavan put himself up as the hero of the People's Coal Revolution, and obviously it was soundly rejected by the party room. Now,
did he like smear coal on his face to like have the Braveheart makeup?
It's the only way he can come is if he's covered in coal.
Of course,
So that's how he G's himself.
It's kind of like a lubricant as such, you know, like a dusty lubricant.
A really extremely dusty lubricant. So Littleproud retained his leadership, and obviously because Sussan Ley won, it meant that Angus Taylor obviously did not get up, and the woman who was running to be his deputy, Jacinta Price, also did not get up. Which is hilarious because
the Nationals, right?
This is what dog shit political instincts Jacinta Price had. So she had a like position of power within, you know, the Country Liberal Party, working with the Nationals. She's then abandoned that for this crack at the deputy leadership of the Liberal Party. She's defected to the Liberal Party from the, you know, for something that was uncertain, which she did not get. So she like left a certain something to try for something that she absolutely did not get, had no chance of getting, and then has fallen flat on her face. And now she's just a member of the Liberal Party. Like where everyone hates her. It's just like perfect. Chef kiss, absolute dog shit political instincts. Jacinta, you get nothing. Thank you for playing, and may God have mercy on your soul. What an idiot.
Yeah, but it was not a well done, great job, Angus. He did not get what he wanted. Yes, but it also follows. My wife and I have been discussing this a fair bit, and George, I think we talked about it on the show a while ago. But it just seems we're following the playbook of all right, let's put a woman in a position of power when everything's going absolutely terribly. Yes,
which we've talked about on the show. Like, look, whenever an organization is going terribly, let's get a woman in there. Let's really improve the image. What if she's like a woman of color? Perfect. Is she diverse sex and gender? What can we get in there? Let's just get the gayest, blackest woman we could possibly. Oh, she failed. Oh no, that's terrible. Let's never try that again.
Yeah, and then when they don't right the ship, because righting this ship would be nigh on impossible for literally anybody. They're like, well, this is why women can't be in charge, then the cycle continues.
Yeah, and it's literally there's documented in the literature. You know, if you go and read the Harvard Business Review, they had a great piece on this where they talked about this phenomenon of the glass cliff where women only get a point. Like the success rate for women in these companies is much, much lower than the average, and it can't be because women are shit at running organizations. It has to be because they only get appointed when things are, when the ship is hitting the rocks, right?
Yeah.
And so, you have to imagine that that's what's happening here to a certain degree. Is they're like, oh, look, it's a historic. All the news has been about how it's a historic endeavor. Look, she's the first female leader of the Liberal Party in 80 years. It's an historic day. The history making is fucking. This moderate historical woman is so moderate, and I'm like, okay. Let's actually check the voting record. Unlike all of these journalists who are just repeating the fucking... I see why the Liberal Party would want to position themselves that way, right? They go, we've just taken an absolute bollocking at the polls. We're gonna place a woman at the head of it. It's not like she won handily, by the way. She won like
4 votes, right?
4 votes. It was like 29 to 25 or something like that. So even after the world-class bollocking that the Liberal Party received at the hands of Peter Dutton and Angus Taylor. 25 of them were still like, still like Angus, though. He's a bloke.
Well, 25 of them saw that performance and went, oh, great job. Well done, Angus.
43% of them said, great job. Well done, Angus, in the style of Angus Taylor. And said, I reckon he should still be the leader. 43% of them. So only 29 of them voted for Sussan Ley, and now they're trying to push this line of like, oh, she's so moderate, and we've listened, we've learned, and we've acted, and we're definitely coming to the center, and we've listened to your concerns. We got it wrong on nuclear, and we were such big fucking dumb idiots before, but we've done some soul searching, and we found our little tiny shriveled black souls nestled up there right next to our appendices, and we've said, we were going to elect a nice, kind, gentle, moderate woman to be the leader of our party. And I said, let's look at the voting record. So this is an article that I wrote and is going to be in the show notes, which goes through all of the various votes that Sussan Ley has conducted over her career and seen, where the areas in which she's moderate and where are the areas in which she is exactly the same as fucking Peter Dutton, the hyper-conservative douchebag that we just defenestrated. And you'll be unsurprised to know, both Tom and Adam, that she voted in exact alignment with Peter Dutton 99.5% of the time. There are 13 votes out of the 2,600 plus votes that they have undertaken together since 2006 when the records were started. 13 of them that weren't exactly the same. It is the kind of parity that you would not find anywhere in electoral politics. They may as well be the same person with regard to how they voted for the last 20-something years.
They are in the same party.
Yes, but as I go through in some detail to talk about in this article, Substack, it's in the show notes. They have the ability to undertake conscience votes.
Yeah, but
it's not like the Labor Party.
But they're not doing that though.
Let me get my fucking point out. They have the ability to undertake conscience votes. There are a handful of things in which she voted differently from Peter Dutton on with regard to abortion rights, with regard to bodily autonomy. Now, mind you, it's not like she's some feminist hero. It's like she voted no 10 times and he voted no 11 times. So she got generally votes against women's bodily autonomy and he got consistently votes against women's bodily autonomy. But there are things on which, specifically with regard to, ethical issues, that the Liberal Party is allowed to undertake conscience votes where they don't vote with the majority of their party. The Labor Party doesn't have that. If you vote against the Labor Party, or even if you speak out against the Labor Party's official position on something, like Fatima Payman did, you get unceremoniously fucking dumped, right? She had the choice. They will defenestrate you for that. In the Liberal Party, they don't.
How many votes did they have? How many votes in total did you say it was?
Over 2,600 that they voted on together. 13 where they went in exact alignment.
Let's assume that there were 4, like in the last 20, like let's assume that there were 10 big moments that she was like, I need to make my own decision on this because for some culturally this doesn't sit well with me. That still doesn't skew the numbers very much. My point being here is saying they've got a conscious vote and that somehow they're going to 80 to 70% of the time
use it.
Or not, so other way around. So they're gonna use it at least 10% of the time.
There are other members of parliament that have less conservative voting records than this. It's not like I just compare. If you go and you compare Sussan Ley to Tim Wilson, or you compare Sussan Ley to Dave Sharma, or actual moderates, you will see a much larger discrepancy than the one between Sussan Ley and Peter Dutton.
Oh, sure.
Sussan Ley is part of the conservative faction. The moderate faction is a dwindling but actual faction in the Liberal Party. She's not part of that faction. I
agree. She's been part of the conservative.
Scott Morrison, right? So
correct. But my point being is saying that they've got a conscious vote and that they. I just think it's a bad example. But yes, historically, she has been part of that faction.
When you look at the voting record, it's not like bodily autonomy is a single vote. Okay, she's been in parliament for whatever it is, years and years at this point. What we're talking about is a pattern of voting when it comes to issues of, this is a woman who last week was talking about how, Australians came to, the settlers came to Australia with no intention to invade. They were just here on a big adventure, terra nullius adventure.
They just stumbled in.
They just stumbled in and accidentally did a couple of genocides. She has showed, with regard to specific issues, like, and I'll bring up the list. Here we go. Voting against the Paris Climate Accord, for decreasing welfare payments, for increasing indexation on help debts, for voting against net zero emissions by 2050, for privatising government services, for reducing the corporate tax rate, against reducing tax on the lowest income bracket, against marriage equality, against free TAFE, etc., etc., etc. She is, whatever you think is the right side of an issue, Sussan Ley has been on the other side of that issue always, forever. And so it just really grinds my fucking gears when people go, oh, she's a moderate. And it's like, well, these are not positions that a moderate has. A moderate does not have positions on cutting the corporate tax rate, raising taxes on poor people, lowering them for rich people. Like, these are not moderate positions. These are extremely conservative positions.
Although I think maybe, I don't know, Adam, if I've misunderstood your point, correct me. But I think where Adam's coming from there is that then there's the party politics element of it, where if every single vote you exercised your conscious vote every single time,
or you do it say 10% of the time, right?
You like there's towing the party line effectively for your own selfish political gain. So I think it's the thing of you can't consider all 2,600 or whatever to be her exact conscience vote. But you're absolutely right in that. That's all we've got to go on in terms of like what
there's a real pattern of real conservative votes, right?
No, look, and she's definitely part of the conservative faction. Now, what's interesting is that she described herself literally in the press conference afterwards, I'm more towards the center. Now, and she's smart.
It's PR. It's bullshit. It's spin.
Yeah. She's going to be smarter than I think Angus and a few of the other guys there, that she knows that they lost the center. And obviously the majority, not a large majority, but the majority of the Liberal Party know that, right? And that's why they've elected her.
That's why they're positioning. That's why she's positioning herself that way.
Now, it'll be interesting because
but the media, what I'm saying is the media doesn't have to go along with it, right? The media can say she calls herself a moderate, but look at the way she's voted, right? She voted in accordance with Peter Dutton 99.5% of the time. They basically share the same DNA.
What would be interesting will be over the next, say, 3 years, is she going to put on a new set of clothes, reinvigorate herself, put a nice set of glasses on and like whatever. That seemed to be what they did with Albo and Dutton. They're like, they're wearing glasses now.
A queer eye makeover, you're saying? Like a queer eye for the straight guy.
But will they rebrand her? And will that be something
they're going to try?
Is that something that she will own and then start to like maybe change her own views about things?
They're already shit talking her on Sky News, calling her a DEI hire. She's not going to last. Because the Liberal Party,
the
Liberal Party
Liberals
doesn't want to move to the centre. There's 20.
They need a
there's 29
majority
of them. There's 29 of them
now.
that thought it might be politically advantageous for us in this moment to look as though we're moving to the centre. And then there's 25 of them who went, nah, fuck her. So they're already backgrounding against her on Sky News, saying she's a DEI hire. This is not going to last.
Well, it's going to be less easy than it was last time to dump an opposition leader because they need a 2/3 majority now. Whereas previously it was like you can call a spill and it's just, and it's a majority. So it's I don't people saying like she's going to go within like a year she'll be gone. Like I don't know about that.
I don't know.
I think
all this talk of moderation is going to piss off all of the fucking right wingers in her shadow cabinet. Like I just don't see it. I don't see it taking.
I guess the question is how desperately do they want power? That's the question, and how much are they willing to change their own views to get power and to improve their position? Because, or are they just too stupid to make that call? And that's the delineation.
Can we put some money on it?
Yeah.
I put some money on them being
too stupid
to fucking do what's in their own best interest. Yes.
I just thought some things to chuck in actually from the They Vote For You data that tracks all their voting records. Sussan Ley voted with Tim Wilson 99.9% of the time. Tim Wilson voted 99.6% of the time with Peter Dutton.
So this is my point. This is my point. Is that the voting records when you're talking about a two-party system or a party system where it's not like the Jackie Lambie network, which they just do whatever the fuck they want.
You can make the argument. You can make the argument that she's some secret moderate at heart, and she's every time she's pulled the lever for the last 20 years, she's just gone, "Oh, I fucking hate myself. Oh, fuck."
But
you
when
can
the
make that
Liberals
argument.
they've got a conscious vote.
We'll see.
They don't
okay.
actually use it.
Now that she's the leader of the party, we'll fucking see if it was, I was just following orders, or if she does the exact same fucking conservative bullshit she's been doing for the last 2 decades. And I tell you what, I think I'd be really, really hard to believe that I'm going to be on the losing side of that bet. I guarantee.
I think it'll be a very cold day in hell. I think if we see that'd be different.
She might end up finding herself what like Malcolm, where it was like, I'm going to try and like, negotiate in good faith with the conservative faction.
Step.
Yeah, like Malcolm Robert. I'm going to Malcolm Turnbull. I'm going to try to be all different and moderate and pull it in the right direction. It's too hard. Fuck it.
Yeah.
And then because she's about to go into renegotiate the whole coalition deal with the Nationals, right? And she may come out of that and just be like, well, I guess we're doing nuclear still.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Is her deputy is the guy who is really pushing nuclear. It doesn't seem like this is a party that's full of contrition, hat in hand, willing to learn the lessons of the last election. If anything, they're trying to slap a new coat of paint on the same old dog shit Liberal Party and go, oh, it's a brand new Liberal Party. Look, this one's a slightly different color of blue. It's like, it's the exact same shit, the exact same policies. They're not even like nuclear was such a dog shit disaster policy for them. And the fact that they haven't disavowed it outright is shocking to me. It is obviously dog shit.
Wait for the review. We have to wait for the review, George. How can we make that determination without a review?
Because otherwise, they're acknowledging that it was dog shit and they knew it.
Well,
if they do it immediately,
they're in a hard position.
They need the review. They need the review to tell them that it was dog shit, so they don't.
Yes, just checking my notes. It turns out this nuclear policy was dog shit. Apparently we got that wrong. No one told us. That's so weird.
I kept turning up to press conferences with my hands covered in dog shit instead of the plan, and I was genuinely confused. But I just went with it.
Let's not forget, as Environment Minister, she's the one who approved the infamous Adani coal mine as well. Like this was the center of a multi-year national protest, an ecological shitstorm. There was a report on Four Corners that talked about the corruption of the Adani family, and they were just like the government at one point at the time, which included Sussan Ley, was talking about trying to like gin up some government-backed financing scheme to help the project go ahead, because the whole thing was so politically toxic that all the major financing institutions kind of looked at it and went, well, we don't want fucking anything to do with this, right? We don't want our names on this. And she approved it anyway. So it's like this is clearly ideologically, you believe in this stuff. You don't just do that sort of thing. You don't put your name on a catastrophe like Adani because you're just following orders. You do it because you ideologically believe it's the case. She was out there a couple of weeks ago talking about how free TAFE was bullshit and we need to wind it all back. And it's like, but you're the same party that's suggesting massive migration cuts. And we've got like 3 different skill shortages that I can think of off the top of my head being, cybersecurity, nursing, aged care, all of these various sectors where we need, especially if we're not getting migrants to come in and fill these positions, we need vocational education programs to train. Even if we trained all of the Australian school leavers that are coming out of school, if you scoop up every fucking 18-year-old that's leaving school this year, and put them in a vocational education program, you still will not have enough bodies to fill the skill shortages that are coming over the next 10 to 20 years. So we need and yet she's out there going, free TAFE cost us $1 billion. It's a waste of money. And I was like, how you guys were proposing a $300 billion nuclear program? Like, it's just
so you're saying that even if
it's giving me an aneurysm, like
even if she wakes up and realizes that she needs to be the new Malcolm 2.0.
Yeah,
she'll never actually truly be Malcolm 2.0
because she doesn't believe
at
all
her
of those
core.
things. Yeah, she's a conservative.
Malcolm Toonbull. Toonbull.
On that note, we have been, we are, we always will be.
I just want to make sure you guys get it. Toonbull. With a W.
Yeah,
with a W in the middle.
This time it's personal.
Yeah. Too fast to Toonbull.
Yeah.
Is that anything? Is there anything?
And the last story of the week is Ben Robert Smith has lost his appeal against the defamation ruling, saying that he committed war crimes in Afghanistan. He has promised to take it to the High Court because he is a piece of shit. On that note, we have been
forward to hearing the third time.
Yes,
that he gets thrown out.
That he's still found to be civilly liable for a war crime. Crimes.
If at first you don't succeed, you need to try, and then try.
If at first you don't, try again. If at first you don't succeed, beg Kerry Stokes to give you the money to try again. On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Threads, and mother flipping TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Instagram at Tom D. Heath.
And you can't follow me. Don't follow me anywhere. I'll be leaving numbers on a beach in shells.
Dead drops.
As
clues if you want to follow
movement.
If you want to follow Adam on social media, you'll have to find the specific beaches where he has written his username in shells. Not all at the same beach. He's done it in pieces, and you'll have to find it in the right order.
It's actually a quest. There's literally a quest to follow me.
And the motive is to get James Comey in trouble at all of those beaches. There's just various pieces of personal information about James Comey left in seashell writing on all those beaches.
At the real James Comey _real.
What a fucking idiot. Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We'll see you next week.